You remember Paris actually got a lot of flack because there was this interview where she said, and this was a few days ago, I loved doing that podcast with her talking about archetypes. She was a very smart and lovely person and I really enjoyed it, which actually was quite an anodyne comment. Probably like one of those comments that you just say when you're trying not to be rude about someone.
Meghan Markle walked into these public moments expecting sparkle, status, and star treatment, but what followed looked like a brutal parade of silence, cold shoulders, and cameras catching every uncomfortable second. This was not just one awkward clip, not just one strange reaction, not just one celebrity choosing someone else. This was a pattern that kept appearing in rooms, streets, red carpets, stadiums, and elite circles where Meghan Markle seemed ready for attention, only for that attention to slide away from her like someone quietly dimmed the lights. And that is what makes the whole story so explosive, because when cameras are rolling, even the smallest pause becomes evidence, every avoided glance becomes a clue, and every unanswered gesture starts looking less like an accident and more like a message hiding in plain sight. The transcript frames the opening as Meghan Markle entering as if the spotlight is already waiting, but then the crowd repeatedly does not seem to follow that script. It begins with Paris Hilton, and the first clue was almost too sharp because it happened so fast. Meghan Markle had spent years building this image of someone moving through polished Hollywood circles, someone close enough to power, celebrity, and royal drama that every little compliment could be polished into proof of influence. Paris Hilton had once offered Meghan a polite, soft, carefully worded compliment about their podcast appearance, saying she enjoyed it and calling her smart and lovely. But polite words in public are not always friendship. Sometimes they are just manners wearing lipstick. And then came the question that cut straight through the image. Would you rather party with Meghan Markle or Miley Cyrus? Paris Hilton did not pause. She did not hesitate. She did not soften the blow. Miley. That was it. One word, and the whole celebrity friend fantasy suddenly looked like it had been left standing outside the velvet rope. You remember Paris actually got a lot of flack because there was this interview where she said, and this was a few days ago, I loved doing that podcast with her talking about archetypes. She was a very smart and lovely person, and I really enjoyed it. Which actually was quite an anodyne comment, probably like one of those comments that you just say when you're trying not to be rude about someone. And that is where the awkwardness gets darker. Because when someone compliments you vaguely, people can spin it into warmth. But when someone is asked directly and chooses the other name instantly, there is no room left for glitter. The speed was the scandal. Paris Hilton answered like Meghan Markle was barely even in the running, and the laughter afterward made the moment feel even colder. Was it playful? Maybe. Was it harmless? Possibly, but in gossip language, that tiny flash of hesitation that never came becomes the whole story, because Meghan Markle has been linked again and again to the world of celebrity approval. And yet here was Paris Hilton, one of the most recognizable socialites alive, casually brushing past Meghan Markle with a smile that looked effortless and a choice that sounded final. Would you rather party with Meghan Markle or Miley Cyrus? Miley, it wasn't even a hard choice, Tesh. No, it wasn't even a second. There was there. That was absolutely in. It was the way she smirked as she said to the camera, no, Miley Cyrus. I mean, who wouldn't want to party with Miley Cyrus, to be fair? Meghan doesn't really come across as someone you want to party with, given what we saw on With Love, Meghan. You know, she wasn't really someone that comes across as fun outside of, obviously. Throwing flower sprinkles on absolutely everything. And here is where the silence becomes louder than any heckle. Because when someone is disliked, people may shout. When someone is adored, people gather. But when someone is ignored, the emptiness itself becomes the verdict. That is why Geneva looked so damaging in the transcript's framing, not because the topic lacked weight, but because the public energy around the moment seemed missing. The cameras were there, the message was serious, but the crowd did not match the image. Then, the comparison became even more brutal when Princess Catherine was mentioned as receiving large, enthusiastic crowds shortly before, making Meghan Markle's quiet backdrop look even more exposed. Whether fair or not, side-by-side optics can become merciless. Then came Sydney, and this one had a completely different kind of sting. Meghan and Harry arrived in Australia carrying the memory of 2018, when crowds once filled streets, waved flags, and treated their royal tour like a public spectacle. But this time, according to the transcript, Sydney did not behave like a city waiting for a royal comeback. People interviewed seemed unaware, uninterested, or completely unaffected. That is the dangerous thing about fame. The loudest fall is not always scandal. Sometimes it is indifference. And then the spotlight swings straight into Paris Fashion Week, where Meghan appeared ready for that glossy elite, camera-ready connection with Kristen Scott Thomas, but what unfolded looked less like a warm celebrity meeting and more like an invisible wall being built built in real time. Meghan seemed animated, eager, leaning into the moment as if the conversation was supposed to bloom into one of those polished Fashion Week friendships that photographs beautifully and whispers power. But Kristen Scott Thomas appeared colder, quieter, almost determined not to feed the scene the way Meghan seemed to expect. That is why this moment hit so hard. It was not a dramatic confrontation. It was worse. It was social frostbite in luxury lighting. Meghan talked, gestured, smiled, and tried to pull energy into the exchange, while Kristen Scott Thomas looked like someone mentally waiting for the moment to end. And when Meghan later appeared to laugh after a model stumbled, then turned toward Marcus Anderson as if expecting shared amusement, the silence coming back made the whole scene look even sharper, because nothing exposes a lonely laugh faster than a room refusing to laugh with you. The transcript describes this as a one-sided exchange where Meghan kept trying while Kristen seemed far less invested. Then came the David Foster moment, and this one was brutal because the setup made the awkwardness feel personal. Meghan and Harry arrived at David Foster's charity gala in Canada, and because Harry had previously described the music producer as an American father figure, the cameras were practically begging for warmth. But when Meghan stretched her arm toward David Foster, expecting the greeting, the hug, the polished public embrace, David Foster appeared to keep moving, just like that, past her, leaving Meghan standing there with a gesture that had nowhere to land. And in gossip language, an unanswered arm is never just an arm. It becomes a receipt. It becomes a freeze frame. It becomes the little social clue everyone rewatches in slow motion, asking whether David Foster missed it, avoided it, or sent a message without saying one word. And the chill did not stop there, because the next scene moved courtside, where Meghan sat beside Oracene Price at the US Open while Serena Williams was playing for history. Meghan seemed to turn toward Oracene Price, appearing ready for a friendly camera-visible exchange that would silently say, "Look how close these circles are." But Oracene Price seemed focused on the match, as any mother would be while Serena Williams was competing. That made Meghan look like she was performing a conversation into thin air, smiling and reacting as if energy was coming back, while the attention beside her stayed glued to the court. The embarrassment was not loud, it was quiet, and that made it worse. She's trying to talk to Serena's mom. It's like she knows the camera's on her. She's trying to talk to her, and Serena's mom is watching the game as you would. Meghan couldn't care less. She's talking to herself. She's doing that thing where she kind of chuckles to herself to make it seem like she's part of the conversation. Then the Jennifer Aniston rumor arrived like a jar of jam wrapped in humiliation. Reports claimed Meghan sent gifts, artisanal jam, luxury wellness products, soft little offerings meant to open a Montecito door and build a Hollywood bond. But the alleged response was ice. Jennifer Aniston was reportedly not interested in drama, not interested in expanding her circle, not interested in being pulled into the Meghan machine. And if the claims were true, the gifts did not become friendship. They became evidence of effort that never paid off. Lady Meghan Markle is love-bombing Jennifer Aniston with gifts ahead of the actress's move to Montecito after her stalking ordeal, but sources said the star wants the Duchess to get lost. Next came the palace birthday silence, and silence from the royal family can roar louder than a statement. Meghan turned 45, and people watched to see whether King Charles, Princess Catherine, Prince William, or anyone in the House of Windsor would publicly acknowledge her. But publicly, there was nothing obvious. No glowing message, no official warmth, no royal embrace on social media. Maybe private words existed somewhere, but public silence became the story, and critics treated it like proof that the distance had hardened into policy. The royal family has humiliated Meghan Markle with a public snub for her 45th birthday, and the reason is simple. She's not a working royal and therefore does not get the royal treatment that she so very, very desperately craves. Then the Met Gala rumors turned the celebrity wound even deeper. Meghan and Harry were whispered around fashion's biggest night, but when the guest list took shape, they were not seen on those steps. Anna Wintour was dragged into the speculation, King Charles and Queen Camilla were held up as contrast, and suddenly the optics looked savage. Senior royals inside respected circles, Meghan outside the fantasy. Oh wow, Anna Wintour has just banned Meghan Markle and Prince Harry from the Met Gala. Paula Froelich exclusive, which just dropped on News Nation and the Scoop Substack. And finally came Oprah, the biggest shadow of all. Meghan and Harry once sat with Oprah for the interview that shook the world, but but reports claimed a second sit-down was not welcomed with open arms. Oprah was said to have declined, and whether that was caution, fatigue, or something colder, the symbolism was impossible to ignore. When the same figure who helped launch the post-royal spectacle no longer appears eager to reopen that door, people notice. Maybe friendship's cool. Maybe Hollywood moves on. Or maybe the room that once looked wide open has been quietly closing. One ignored gesture, one missing invitation, and one unanswered call at a time. Now, Oprah Winfrey has also reportedly snubbed Harry and Meghan. They floated the idea of a second sit-down interview. I mean, I don't know why that was floated. It was, of course, so explosive, that very first one. But the fact that she's Oprah is reportedly snubbed the Sussexes here. I mean, what does that say about their current standing in Hollywood?